This is the Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci, where we talk about everything but don't sugarcoat anything. Welcome back to the Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci. Today is another solo pod episode, and I have a really important topic that I want to talk about today because I want to be I always aspire to be very authentic, transparent, vulnerable, self-aware in how I approach business and how I explain my business to other people. And that's what today's episode is going to be all about. So I'm going to tell the story and the history of KRAE Consulting that has now shifted into KRAE Creative and Talent. And I want to tell the story about how it all got started, why it got started, why it's important to me, and just what it's transitioned into. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I get a lot of questions about it. A lot of people, when they haven't started a business, but they have this dream to start a business, they always wonder, well, I just feel like I'm not in the right place to start a business, or I just don't know that I'm the right person for it, or whatever. And I think by me pulling back the curtain a little bit, I think I maybe will probably remove this pedestal that I think some people maybe put me on, to make it believe that I was just meant to be a business owner, right? I'm going to show just how really kind of normal I am in regards to business ownership. So that's what today's episode is going to be about. And we have lots of questions that we're going to be answering, ones that people have asked me in the past, questions that we think from my team is just really relevant to how I lead. So hopefully you enjoy today's episode. So I think it's really important for people to know who I was before KRAE. So I'll give a little backstory just about myself in general. Some things are related to business, some are not, but I think it's good to just know who somebody is as an entire person. So before I started KRAE, I started the company when I was 26 years old. So I am originally not from this area. I'm originally from, I moved around a lot when I was younger because my parents' job, and I have brothers, I have siblings, and I'm a middle child between two boys. I definitely fill those shoes very well. I'm very rebellious. I definitely was very much so a tomboy growing up. Wasn't into very girly stuff until later. And even now to this day, I wouldn't consider myself a super girly person. But we grew up in a very traditional type setup that my dad worked. Thank you very much. Love you. That my dad worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she, which is obviously also a job, but she was a stay-at-home mom, took care of us. That was their agreement that they had with each other. And we bounced around a lot growing up, but I originally say that I'm from New Hampshire. So that's where I went to elementary school, middle school, high school, and then I came down here for college in 2012. Moved down here, went to York College, Pennsylvania. It's a funny story. We'll go into that one day about how I got down here, but I would say in regards to who I was as a student, I was not an A+ student. I wasn't even arguably a B+ student. I hated school a lot of the times, other than if it was a class that I enjoyed. So maybe gym or art classes or workshop or personal finance. I loved the stock market games that we used to play. But if it was a class that I didn't see, which I've now found is complete trait of an entrepreneur, if I didn't see a true value and a direct correlation to how I could use this class, I typically failed it, didn't show up, then barely passed. And that's how pretty much all of my schooling was, even throughout college. So I was a big athlete. I was a 4-season athlete. I played basketball, softball, field hockey, and I danced competitively for about 15 years. And I loved sports. Sports are my life. I wanted to go to college for sports. Things, in my life shook out that wasn't the plan for me. So I had to go to school for school. So I ended up at York College, Pennsylvania, and I started as a psychology major. I've come from a family of engineers, and my younger brother's a doctor now. Not a lot of feelings, not a lot of emotions, not a lot of feelings. They're definitely thinkers. They're logical people. And I was a very highly sensitive kid with a lot of feelings. I was definitely a creative. I was a free thinker. I was rebellious. I was all those things. So I wanted to go to school to understand people more and emotions. So psychology felt like the right move for me. After being in psychology for a certain period of time, I was just like, I don't really want to be a guidance counselor. I don't really want to be a social worker. I don't really want to be some of these things. I had plans that I wanted to do something like occupational maybe, or Profiling was a big thing that I was really interested in that not a lot of school systems support. So I ended up switching. I found a really good career coach that and an advisor that helped me move into more of the business world and the marketing world. He saw whatever he saw in me in college and took me under his wing. And he's like, I think you are meant for business. Nobody had really said that to me before. I didn't really know exactly what that meant. But I'm really thankful that he did that because it definitely set a trajectory for how I looked at myself from a confidence lens in regards to like what I could accomplish. Because prior to that, when you grow up in a family that's really, really book smart, right? Like valedictorians, both my parents are engineers. My older brother's an engineer. My younger brother's a doctor. I didn't feel very smart. I didn't feel like anything other than sports was really my thing. And so to have a adult that is brilliant, that makes a lot of money, that is a professor at a university, to tell me that I am so smart and so capable of business and marketing with a little, twist of psychology, and it was a really, really big deal. So his name was Tom Lepson. I think he's still around. I don't know. He's like the oldest teacher at York College, Pennsylvania at the time. I think he's still going. I don't know. But really, really great. And I think people like that will come into your life to kind of teach you things and push you. And he was definitely somebody who pushed me a lot. And so then after school, I had a couple different jobs and different things that I was doing, but most of them fell around marketing and business development and in the construction industry. So when I first started KRAE, it was interesting. I'd worked in recruiting for a long time. I worked at a really large corporate. It was the largest corporate company that did recruiting, hiring, staffing, things like that. And I worked for them for like a little under 3 years, I think. I moved up pretty quickly at the company. Well, I had a really rough start, truthfully. I had a really rough start at that company. I was horrible. I was horrible at recruiting. I cried when I had to leave my first voicemail. I was just a really bad recruiter. I didn't get it. And I don't know if it was the environment. I don't even know if it was how I was being trained. I don't know what it was, but I couldn't get it. Like I just couldn't get it. And they usually would say that I think it was however many weeks that somebody would get their first start. And I was like 8 months in without my first start. I was like, I either want to quit. I'm probably going to get fired. I was horrible at recruiting to start. And then something just clicked. And I started doing really, really well. And managers changed. And so I had been in that role for a period of time. I got really, really burnt out. My mental health was at the lowest it's ever been in my entire life. Anybody that's ever experienced panic disorder, severe anxiety, just major mental health issues. I've been there. I've lived it. There was like a period of about 2 years of my life that I had multiple panic attacks a day, every single day. And I didn't really know what it was from, other than I knew that I started kind of keeping track of what I think was causing me anxiety. And so it was interesting. There was a period of my life, and I find that I do this every so often. I haven't done it in a while because I think I'm much healthier than I used to be, but I would get to a place that I was so sick of the way that I felt that I would just like do a full clean sweep of my entire life all at the same time. And so this period of time when I was dealing with my mental health, where it was, I just got sick of my own self and like the way that I was feeling, and I was like, I need to make a change, or nothing's going to change. And so I literally broke up with this boyfriend that I'd been in a relationship with for probably about 1.5 years. I broke up with him. He was cheating on me, and I found that out from social media, as many people do, sadly. And I break up with him. I don't tell anybody that I really did it because I just kind of knew that I would needed to make some major changes. So that was when I break up with him. Probably the next week, I had it scheduled that I was going to be leaving my job. I didn't just randomly quit. I had a plan in place. I had commissions on the line. For anybody that's, considering leaving a job or changing a career path or whatever, there has to be some strategy that goes into that. And so because I was a recruiter, I feel like I was really good at leaving jobs and coaching people through it. So I had a strategy on how I was going to get out of my role because I knew I needed to make a change for myself. So I went ahead and I put in my notice. And they ended up saying, hey, you can just go today, which I'll never understand why some companies do that. I think they're just like, it's an emotional reaction. I'm not sure. There's probably a whole bunch of reasons that go into that, but they told me that I could leave that day, which was really a blessing because I needed that work environment was very unhealthy for me. It was definitely contributing to my mental health crisis. And so getting out, I had weeks between then and when I could start this new job. Um, so I break up with my boyfriend. I leave this toxic job. So 2 toxic things are gone and I start feeling better. Am I 100% better? Absolutely not. Nowhere close, but I'm probably like 10% better. I feel like there's a weight lifted off. I don't have to go to this environment of work that stresses me out anymore. I don't have to communicate with this individual that stresses me out anymore. And mind you, that was not hard. Those were not easy decisions, right? Like those were 2 really big things to do in a matter of 2 weeks. But that just tells you, and anybody that's listening that's been through situations like that, that when you're just going through so many difficult things, you just get so sick of it and you're like, I just need to make a change. And so those were 2 really big changes that I needed to make for myself, my mental health, my spiritual health, just me. I needed to make those decisions for me. And so I remember I was living in this tiny little apartment, and it was just funny. I remember like I just clean slated everything. I remember my mom came up a couple times and we took like 4 truckloads of just like stuff out of my apartment and we just went and donated all of it. And I was just getting things out and I was like, okay, well, how do I want to spend? Because you usually have like a period of time that you allocate between jobs, like before you start one job to the next. So now I had even more time because I put in my notice. They didn't make me work it. They told me they would pay me regardless, even if I just left. So I was like, all right, cool. So I was at home and I was like doing all those jobs that you like never have time to do anything for. I had all my like jewelry and I would sit there and I polished like every piece of jewelry. I was just doing things that I'd never had time for. And it was so good for my brain to just kind of have that really mental reset. And I would recommend that too for anybody else. Like if you're in between starting one job and another job, you need to have at least a week in between because you really need to detox one place before you can start another. It's like starting a new relationship, right? Like you don't want to break up with somebody and then the next day be in a brand new, serious relationship. You need to have some time in between. And so I take that very seriously with work. And I'm really thankful that I think it was about a matter of like 3 weeks, maybe in between. So I was really able to kind of like detox the one place and start this new job. So immediately starting this new job, I was a business development manager. I believe that was my title for an engineering firm. And this probably would have been in like February-ish of 2020. And I started working for them. And mind you, this was a company I took probably a third. This tells you how bad my mental health was, right? I took about a pay cut that was probably a third of what I was making before. And it was a very easy job for me. I knew I could do it. It was perfect for where I was in my life. I knew that mentally I couldn't handle a big mental load. I knew that spiritually I couldn't handle anything incredibly challenging, but I knew business development. I really hustled my butt off to make sure I had all these connections local in the area. And I made sure that this job would be something that would, in a sense, come easy to me, right? But the date of it's interesting because February of 2020, March is when I believe, wasn't it March? That I think all this stuff's really started going crazy in 2020 with the pandemic, right? So I remember like it was yesterday, business development jobs going really well. I've got a lot of really good, leads coming in. I was able to pull a lot of leads from my last job and my new job to be able to get, engineering jobs for them. And I remember the day, and everyone will probably laugh when they hear this, but I remember when we're at work and it was like 3 p.m. on whatever day that it was. And they're like, everybody's got to go home. Liquor stores are closing at whatever time and everything's closing down. And so I remember literally taking like it was a panic. I remember taking my desk and like pulling everything off my desk into a bag. I didn't care if it was organized, I didn't care because we had to get out and we had to go home. And so it was one of those that, again, everybody will remember this one. If you were working during this period of time, like there was no sense of when are we coming back? What does it look like? What is it like? It was just panic. Like there was just this panic associated to this pandemic. It was so uncertain. There was just given this idea that everybody's dropping dead in the streets. I mean, like it was just literally insane. And so we ended up working at home for however long. And that's when Zoom started becoming really popular and the Teams meetings started becoming popular. And that's the only way you could communicate with people because nobody was able to, spend time in person. And I don't remember how long it was since I got, everybody was sent home and wasn't able to work at the office anymore. And like we had to, work at home. But there was a period of time between that and then, there was this Friday that came along. That was exactly my 60 days of working for this company. And on day 61, my benefits would have gone active. And it was a Friday at 4:30. I get a call from the HR department or whoever it was. No, it wasn't the HR department. I think it was my actually direct hiring manager. I don't know if HR was on the phone, but they laid me off. They laid me off at Friday, 4:30 on my exact 60 days. And I remember that really rubbing me the wrong way, for very obvious reasons. And I get it. I'm a business owner. I understand what you have to do, but my laptop gets shut off. My email gets shut off. Everything gets shut off. Well, if you're a business development manager, I'm not only operating week per week, I've got meetings in my calendar for the next however many months. And these are people I had met prior to this company. Now I got people calling me going, why aren't you showing up for this meeting? I was scrambling. It just put me in a really bad spot. And the reason that all of this is really important, because it leads you to the key moment that you know that you want to start a business. And when this company did that, it was almost like the nail in the coffin for me, or the cherry on top, or whatever analogy you want to give, that made me go, I am so sick of working for people that don't care about people. And I had done that at how many different jobs. And so many people have asked me that question, like, how'd you know it was the right time that you wanted to start a business? And and I was like, I don't know. I don't think there's ever a good time to start a business. But what I found, which is the answer that made the most sense for me, was that I found myself repeatedly being in jobs and working for people that cared less about the company, less about the employees, less about the clients than I did. And why would that be the case? How could an employee care more about their fellow employee, or care more about, how a client is being handled, or how, the business is being represented? How do I care more than the owner of the company? And that, to me, looking back, was what made me start my own company. Because if I care more and you're doing that well, I wonder how well I'll do. So it was funny. However long after, I started KRAE. I called a accountant. I called an attorney. I had no idea how to start a business, guys. I had no clue. I remember standing in my kitchen of my little apartment. I had a yellow pad piece of paper that had the number of an attorney and the number of an accountant. And that is all I knew about business. That's all I knew about business. I didn't have some like crazy business degree from some Harvard University. I had an accountant's name and I had an attorney's name. And I had a general idea of skill sets that I was good at. And what I did from there is I called both of them. And this is something that you need to be humble and just call people and ask them to tell you what to do. So I called both of them, and I think I called the accountant first. I think I called my accountant first, which I still use the same accountant now. He was incredible from day one, is still incredible now. And I called him and I was like, I don't know how to do this. I got to ask you certain questions. And he told me exactly what to do and exactly what he was going to do and who I needed to call and what I needed to do. And this person was referred to me. So I'm very thankful that this person was referred to me, to be able to go and work with him, because he really was very instrumental in the start of the business. And then I called the attorney, had a long conversation with him. This is what I think I'm doing. This is what I need. And he walked me through that entire process of getting an LLC and what the paper. So guys, I can't stress enough, I was not some brilliant business-minded person when I started this company. I literally had a yellow pad of paper with 2 numbers on it, and I was just curious. I had a dream, I had some drive, and I was just curious. So from there, I remember coming up with some general business model based on what I was good at and what I'd been hired to do in the past for other people. So I created this business model, and it was interesting. And this is where I think social media comes into play, was when I changed my one job from recruiting to this engineering firm. I had a pretty big following on LinkedIn. That's the only place I had a really big following. And so from there, I had people reach out to me that were like, hey, I didn't know you were looking for a new job. Cause you know how it announces on LinkedIn that you started something new. And so I remember just getting these messages, people being like, if I knew that you were looking for a job, I would have wanted to talk to you. So I made note of all of those people, because you never know. Even when I started that new engineering firm, you never know when you start this new company if it's going to work out well or not. So I kind of put them in a little, mental box in my brain of just people that are like, okay, I know that they want to hire me. So what I did is from there, I took my business model, I went back to them and I said, hey, I know you want to hire me. I know that the world's kind of uncertain. That was the word all the time, uncertainty, new normal. That was all the words that were being thrown around. And I was like, it's uncertain whether or not you're going to need somebody in business development and marketing or whatever. So what if I work for you like this instead of, full time? And 6 companies right off the bat signed up with me. So I went from no clients to 6 clients like that. And it's funny because I go back and I think to myself, like, would I have preferred, because there's people that are like, the 0 to 5 years is not when you get rich, it's when you get good. Well, what if like your business does blow up from day one and you're not good? Like, I was not good, guys. I was not good. I relied so heavily on others' opinions and like other resources that I had, people that I knew to coach me and mentor me. I mean, like, it is the most humbling experience being a business owner. You don't know how to do anything. You literally don't know how to do anything because there's nothing else in life that is comparable to running a business. There's nothing. And you don't know how to do any of it until you do it. So now I'm like, I got lots of clients right out the gate. I still don't know how to do anything. And I'm just figuring it out. I always use the term I was drinking out of a fire hose for the first like 2.5 years of owning this business, because the business blew up at the same time that I was learning it. Right. So I'm like getting more and more clients. And then I'm like learning how to even run a business at the exact same time. So it was a lot of, I feel like I've been in business for 30 years, that it's just been compacted into this 5-year period, because we'll be 5 years old in April. And so that's how it all started. And from there, I start hiring and I start obtaining new employees and I start, gathering new services and I start figuring out what I really like to do. And yeah, truthfully, we blew up. And I think there's a lot of ways that I made that happen. I think some of it was just God's plan for my business. I believe that some of it was just about time and I'd needed to do it. There's so many variables that I think contributed, but one that was really big that I can definitely align to is that my social media following, my following on LinkedIn, when I announced that I started this company, people were so curious. They were so interested. Like, who is this 26-year-old girl that was working for this company, was working for that company, and now she owns this company called KRAE? What's that? So that's overall how it got started. But I know we have a bunch of other questions to get through that kind of unpacks things a little bit further. And I need a drink. I remember I have this notebook that in counseling, I wrote about 6 months before I actually started the business. I had wrote in there that I wanted to leave the job that I was at, take the money that I had made, from my contests and whatever, and start my own company. And I didn't know what type of company. I didn't know any of that. And I didn't do it right away. And I ended up going and working for this engineering firm. But then, months later, I was like, all right, I hear you. Now's the time. I have, nothing but time during this, pandemic, and I have, some money. And that's another thing too, because like some people think that they need like a lot of money to start a business. You don't necessarily. I mean, there's certain types of businesses you definitely do, but a lot more of it is just contacts and getting creative. Like, you just need contacts and you just need to be able to get creative. And for mine, like, I think I only spent maybe $5,000, I think, to start the company. I remember I just went to Best Buy. I bought a Surface Book laptop that was probably $3,000 or something like that, $3,500. And then I went and bought all my, legal paperwork and all my, signage. And then I bought business cards and whatever. And guys, I was running this thing out of my 2-bedroom apartment. I had a guest room and then I turned it over to a warehouse. I had shelves in the room and whatever. So like, you don't have to be fancy. You don't have to be fancy. Like, it doesn't have to be fancy. I don't remember what we did in our first year, but we did hundreds of thousands of dollars in our first year in business. And it wasn't fancy. I was working off of a table that I had found, I think right after college. It was like put on the side of the street that was for free. And I just picked it up because I thought it was cute and I used it as my desk. Like, it doesn't, guys, you don't have to have the office and the Taj Mahal of, setups. You don't need to have that to start your business. So if that's an obstacle that is affecting you from starting a company, it's not real. You don't need that. I started off this tiny little thing, barely any money, and a dream. And it just went from there. So due to my experiences that I've had in past roles and working for past people, I really figured out what I did and didn't want to do as my own, as a leader, as a boss, as a business owner, whatever. I worked on a lot of environments and work that were very unsafe. They were very toxic. I didn't feel appreciated. I didn't feel supported. I didn't feel valued, none of that. So when I created the company in itself, from the actual model of the business, I knew that I wanted to bring a lot of my personality to the table. So like, and when I started, you take the work that you take, and you take the work that anything that's given to you because you're starting your business out. But I remember that I specifically, when I was writing about this name of the company, I had words like savage marketing or different marketing or whatever, because that's just my personality. It was very rebellious. I'm very different. I'm very aggressive. I'm very assertive. I'm very demanding. I'm very in your face. And I'm very 100% myself. So I wanted a name that had to do with that. So the name KRAE, which people always think has to do with like architectural and engineering because the AE, or like recruiting architectural engineering, which is very clever, honestly. And I love that they think about that, but that has nothing to do with it. So Ray is my middle name, RAE. I was named after my grandfather. He has now since passed, but at the time he was not doing very well. And I've always loved my name. And I was named after him. And so KRAE sounds like when people say cray cray or crazy. And I had that nickname that people called me KRAE. And they would call me Pucci or they call me Pooch or whatever. I have all these different nicknames. And I was like, I think I want to call this KRAE. And I was always thinking about my future self as well. I didn't want to put Pucci associated to it because I know when I get married one day, I'm not going to want to keep my last name. I'm very traditional in that mindset. And so I came up with KRAE and I was like, it's like crazy. It's like cray cray. It's, whatever. And it's very true to me. So that's where the name came from. The name has stuck. The name will continue to stick. I know that there's some people I'm kind of breaking my own rules when it comes to branding and marketing, that it's like, is it easily, is it easy? What is the word I'm thinking of? Is it easy to pronunciate it? No, it's not. Like, it's not. I break the own branding rules of like, can anybody say it? Absolutely not. People think it's KRAE, or they think sometimes people do KREA. Like, I get it. I'm breaking my own rules, but I feel strong enough in my personal brand, and I feel strong enough in the visual brand and our reputation and our services that we're fine. We'll carry it through. So that's another thing I would recommend is, if another thing that's holding you back from starting a business is the name, get over yourself. The name isn't what's going to sell your service or your product. The service or the product in you is what's going to sell the service or the product. So don't let that hold you back. Go with something that kind of gets you on fire, kind of makes sense, but it's something you can get excited about, and just roll with it. Just roll with it. Don't let that hold you back. Just get rolling. But I knew when I created this company that one thing was about it, and I never knew that it was going to turn into what it is now. I had absolutely no idea that it would be as big as it is, that I would have the team that I do, that we would have the clients that we did. I had no idea when I first started this thing. It started as just a small business that was 100% female run, that worked for architectural, engineering, construction clients on a local basis in central PA. And I had no idea it would turn into this national firm now that does very well. And I'm very thankful for that. And it's impressive. It's impressive what we've done. And something that I've kept true to since the beginning was I wanted to create an environment that I never experienced as an employee for my team. I want my team to feel supported. I want them to feel valued. I want them to feel appreciated as independent people. I don't want them to feel just like they're a number. I want them to feel like they can grow within their roles. I want them to feel like I support them to grow within their roles, both personally and professionally. I want them to feel safe to be vulnerable, to bring up issues, to bring up feedback. I want all those things to be true. And I want them to know, this is a big one too. I want them to know that I have their back. I want my team to know that I have their back. And if they have an issue with a client, or they have issue, like, I have your back, and I'm going to stand up for you, whether you're in the room or you're not in the room. I'm going to stand up for you. And that's something that's super, super important to me. But from a business perspective, I wanted it to be this like true to my personality, totally different. You're either going to love me or you're going to hate me. You're either going to love what we do or you're going to be like, she ain't for me. And I'm okay with that. That's how I've always been. And I'm glad that I was able to kind of communicate that through our brand. Talk about any moments of doubt and fear and how you pushed through them. I think that's a really great question. So just so you're aware, if you haven't jumped or plunged into business ownership, you're going to doubt yourself all the time. It doesn't care if you're successful or you're not successful. You are doubting yourself. You probably actually doubt yourself more when you are successful. Maybe. I don't. But the imposter syndrome is so real. Like, it happens pre-starting the business. It happens as the business is going. People think that, I hear this all the time from just my like friends that are business owners, or even some of my talent clients, that they're like, when I make $1 million, all my problems are going to, and it's like, that could not be further from the truth. Like, you make more money, that means you have more expenses. You've got more things you got to solve. There's more stresses. That means you have more team members. So now you got to take care of more money, and having this big successful business doesn't mean that it's easier than having a smaller business. So it's like super, super stressful. And there's a lot of fear that you have. And like, I'm someone who very much so leads my team with my heart, and I care a lot about my employees. So fears that I have were like, what if one day I have to lay off employees, right? Like that's a horrible thing. And some people might not be affected to the way that I'm affected, but I'm really affected by that. Like that's a horrible fear that I have, that I would have to lay off employees one day, or I would have to like, if I did, which one would be first? Oh my, what a horrible decision for someone who's like so in tune and cares about their team so well. Can you imagine having to make that decision, having to go, okay, the business, and it's not maybe by anything that you could even control, right? Like let's say it's clients, a bunch end contracts. And, it's not because of anything that you did. Maybe one's getting bought, one's getting this, and it's just a storm that you go through. And then you have to pick an employee of a group of employees that you love dearly that all have incredible parts and roles in the company. And you got to pick which one you're going to lay off first. Are you kidding me? What a horrible thing to have to think about. And you're thinking about it when it's not even true, because it's just something that could potentially happen, right? There's moments of doubt in yourself when you start with a new big client, or you go for a big proposal with a new type of client that you get this imposter syndrome. Can I do this? Can I do what they want me to do? Am I even capable of that? When I speak, I go to speak next week in Connecticut for this huge conference. And it's like, what am I going to talk about? Are they going to think what I'm saying is valuable? Like you think that in your head, and you're like, Kristen, 11,000 people follow you on LinkedIn because they think what you say is valuable. But like in the moment, you don't think you're special. Like, I don't think that I'm special. I don't think that I've mastered. And I know that people listening to this or whatever would be like, Kristen, like, this is incredible what you do. But like, you just feel so normal. Like you feel like, okay, I created this business and I created this great team. And now, people are booking me. I just think it's a bunch of like small steps that I put together that just happened to click and work and turned into something else. I don't think that I'm, more capable than anybody else or anybody listening to this, or I just was very intentional with my time, and I just had a dream and I took a risk and I did it. So share moments when you had to make difficult decisions that tested your values. The first thing that came to, and if you think of anything, Carolyn, let me know. But the first thing that came to my mind is with a client. I have one client specifically I'm thinking in my head because it comes from like a values standpoint, that they aligned with me from like a belief system and what I valued, but we did not align with how we ran our businesses. And it's interesting, when I go down that client route, like there's even clients that I would say we have right now that really, they're testing my values. And I would say like the value that they're testing is just myself, or my team's value. Right? That's the value that I think. How much do we value ourselves? What is our self-worth, right? What do we value? Do we value them or do we value ourselves? And I'm dealing with that currently at this moment with some clients, and I've dealt with that in the past, and I think all business owners have, is that like, okay, at what point am I done trying to save this client or trying to fix this client or trying to help this client? Like, what is the tipping point? What is the tipping point that you take your power back and you take your energy back, and you just go, hey, we aren't right for each other. This has been a total train wreck, honestly, since the beginning. And we've tried to steer this thing on the right path, but I just don't think we have the same plan. And so that's something that I think has been really difficult and has tested me a lot, because there's a lot of, and know this, guys, if there's any employees that are listening to this and you have a leader who leads with their heart and whatever, it's hard. It's hard to make those decisions that it's like, hey, I've got a certain team here. I have a certain bottom line. I have a certain amount of money that I need to be making to feed everybody. And feeding everybody is literally my employees, right? And I know that they want to make a certain amount of money, and I know that they want to, but also at the same time, I've got this client that's kind of a pain in the butt, right? And it's like, well, how do I, that's it. Just how do I navigate this? And you don't want to decrease anybody's pay because you understand the financial stresses that they have, your employees have in their lives. You don't want to do like a cut across the same. You don't also want to stress yourself out and put too much stress on the company by eliminating these. So you try to phase them in and phase them out. Like, I can tell you guys, if you care about your boss and you care about the leader or a manager, whoever you have at your company, just know that these stresses are on their minds, and that it is such a beautiful blessing And I know that we've chose this life for ourselves, but it is such a blessing to be able to go to work and then not think about work when you get home. There is such a negative to being a business owner that I can't ever shut this thing off. And I can do a really good job at, shutting my laptop at the end of the day and, not thinking about work per se, but I'm never not the owner of this business. And I'm never not thinking about my employees, even when I'm on vacation, even when I'm away. I'm never not thinking about them and how to just like make it better for them, how to make better, decisions for my clients, how to bring them more value, how to be more this, how to be like, that is just such a thing that's in a business owner's brain. How do I just be more to everybody around me and in my life? And I got to tell you, that's exhausting. So if you have people that you care about in your life that are business owners or whatever, know that they carry that burden with them all the time, and let them know that you see them and you hear them, and that maybe you want to listen to the burden. You don't have to understand it, but you do want to listen. So yeah, I would say that's something I struggle a lot. Values, I think too, is just how much do you value money or value what you do and value, how good you are at something. Money can, be very distracting. It can be this shiny object that you want to make more money. Everybody wants to make more money, but at the expense of what, right? So that's something that definitely tests your values a lot in business. Key people that helped support me in starting KRAE. So it's funny. There is someone that's very instrumental when I started this business, and he's out there. I imagine he doesn't listen to my podcast. We don't have any sort of, contact with each other whatsoever. But it was the person that I was dating when I started this business. And, it again, as you do until you, spend more time healing yourself or whatever, it was a pretty unhealthy relationship for a variety of reasons, but something that I am incredibly grateful for that I learned in that relationship and that I took out of that relationship was KRAE. And, he was very instrumental in just the how. Well, maybe not the how, but the what. I think maybe the what. I don't know. It's one of those. He was very, very helpful, and he was a business owner himself, and he kind of could guide me, and question me and challenge me and whatever. And he was definitely super instrumental in that. It took me a long time to feel any sort of gratitude towards that relationship, as it is really hard, when you go through something like that. But I definitely have a lot of gratitude for that time. And if that was all that was supposed to come out of that relationship, then I'm 100% grateful for that. And I would go through it again, because this business is absolutely beautiful. And the things that I've learned and the ways that I've grown and the ways that God has communicated with me through this business is absolutely unmatched. And so I'm definitely very appreciative of that. I'm also super appreciative of, again, those first 2 calls I ever made was to, I don't know, I think he knows that this is important to me, but I'll have to tell him, but just to that accountant and to that attorney, they were so open and helpful and not judgmental that I didn't know a thing. I was a 26-year-old girl calling, I don't know how to do this, but this is what I want to do. Help. And like for someone to have that humility and not make me feel less than or 20, like I was 26-year-old girl starting a business. They never once made me feel like that. And every single year it's always like, you guys are killing it and you're awesome and whatever. Like that was incredible. I'm trying to think who else was really around. I mean, like my followers, I would say big time, like in social media with starting. I mean, it was so cool to hear all this support and this wave of support of me starting this business. I really kind of did a lot of this stuff silently and by myself. And I sat and I wrote things and I researched and I looked at stuff. And I'm trying to really think, I apologize if there's anybody I'm forgetting that you're like, hey, I really helped in the beginning. I'm doing this off the fly, but I know that there was definitely some people to start that helped a lot. And then just also, there were people in the industry that were always like, I remember there was one guy, he said to me years before I started my business, he's like, why are you working for somebody else? You should be working for yourself. And so there was just those little like God winks or God kisses that just kind of like throughout that I just remember being like, okay, this is the thing for me. So, I had a really great counselor then too, therapist counselor. They were really pushing me and guiding me in the direction that I needed to go. So that was great. So I feel like I had a pretty good system going for what I wanted to do. So yeah, that was definitely who was around when I first got started. Question was, any resources, books, things out there on the internet that could help people start businesses? I know it sounds crazy and I don't want to give the impression that it's about to give because I know it's going to give it, but I don't really think I don't remember reading, like I don't remember reading a bunch of things and like, because that's not me, right? I'm not someone who's like, like read it and then be like, okay, I've got all my ducks in a row. I'm going to go now. I am so much more that I'm like, hey duck, we're ready. Okay. And just jump like that is so much more my personality. So I don't think I did all this like preparation and planning. I wish I could remember if I did. I think there's probably specific reasons why my brain is not remembering that certain part of my life. If you've been through any sort of certain types of relationships, you know why your brain tends to not remember certain things. But I don't know that I really remember exactly what I was doing. I don't remember like listening to podcasts or reading or whatever. I think you just need to trust yourself. Like, I think you just need to trust yourself, trust your experience. And like, if you have that desire on your heart, because that's a big theme with these questions is like, well, if I wanted to, or if I could, or if I, it's like reinventing yourself, right? If you have this desire, and whether or not you believe in God or you believe in the universe, or you believe in spiritual, whatever you believe in, I do not believe that if you have a desire in your body, on your heart, whatever, that is not by accident. That is not by accident. You need to lean into that and you need to do something with it. If you have a desire to start your own business, if you have a desire to do this, if you have a desire to start this product, you want to create dog somethings, like whatever it is, that desire is on your heart for a reason. I truthfully believe that it's God's plan for you, God's purpose for you. Whatever you believe and you think it's energy, whatever, fine. You can, fine. But you need to lean into that. Stop ignoring it. Stop ignoring that whisper. Stop ignoring that sign. Stop ignoring those things. Just trust yourself. And I think that was the biggest thing that I did when I started was I trusted myself, that I knew I was sick of working for other people. I felt like I'd gained enough experience through, because I was a sponge. I love to watch people and observe. I did so much of that. And then obviously, those resources. But the best thing that I would do is just grab people that are older, smarter, wiser than you are and just pick their brain. So in that time, it was an attorney, it was an accountant, it was this other individual. And I just would pick their brains. How do I do this? How do I get started? Don't try to figure everything out yourself. There are hundreds of thousands of people that have already done this. Don't bang your head against the wall until something shakes loose and frustrate yourself to try to figure this out. So many other people have done it, and there's the answer to everything is out there. So just go and find it. A big milestone that I remember over the, trajectory of the company and my career. And I would say I can't think of any specific ones, but I know that it's happened frequently, is just my clients' success. It is so cool to me when you get like a call or an email or they give you more work or whatever, because what we're doing for them is working. That never gets old. Like, and it could be something as small as like, we're running their LinkedIn, right? And we're doing their personal page, right? We're doing ghostwriting for them and we're writing, and then they like get some comment. It could be one comment from someone that's like, hey, John, love this post. Would love for you to come in and speak at our company. That feels like, that feels like I won the lottery, right? Because I know how big of a deal that is to my client, that if there's someone who's like, oh my gosh, I want to get into speaking, seeing that first exchange, getting that first conversion for them, I feel like I'm getting my first conversion. Like, it is just so exciting. So little things are so monumental to me. So that's why I think I'm struggling to be like, is there something huge and, gigantic? And it's all gigantic to me. It is all so fun. It is all exciting. And it could just even be like somebody who's so excited to hit 1,000 followers on something. And then we hit 1,000 followers and they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. And everybody's different, which what is their thing that they're so excited that they hit. What is their goal? Everybody's goals are different, but I'm so excited when we can help our clients hit their goals. So yeah, that's what I would say. I don't know. There's nothing really specific, but I think it's cool to watch talents, get on television networks that they never imagined they could get on, get brand deals with people they never dreamed that they would have brand deals with. That's cool. I think it's so cool to watch, some of my speakers, like how they get into rooms that they never expected to speak in. I think it's so cool to see, my clients that maybe we at first started one company with them and now they're starting another company because the first company is doing so well. And so now they want us to help, brand that new one and help, create the messaging and do the video work and do all the writing for it. I mean, like that's huge to me every time. 'Cause you know what I mean though? Like, that's so, I love that. I love when like Gina comes to me and goes like, did you see that person's comment? Like that is huge to me. Cause I know how huge that is to the person that we're running their stuff for. Like how exciting that is for them to see that comment. Oh my gosh, someone wants me to come in and talk about this, or like, hey, I'm going to use this in my next week's strategy meeting. Oh my gosh, how cool is that their name is going to be up in somebody? I think that's cool. I think that's cool. And I think that's cool that we get to be a part of that. I think there's a lot of things, and I think this will maybe be helpful to people, and we'll kind of wrap it up with this because I think some will be positive and some will be just challenges that I overcame. But looking back, is there one thing you wish that you'd known when you first started KRAE? I think the first one that I remember was that how emotionally challenging having a team is. Having employees, how emotionally challenged. I wish I knew how emotionally challenging that was. I think you think when you're like first getting into your first manager job that you're like, oh, I got to make sure everybody hits their deadlines and they're working their best and they're being efficient and they're whatever. And like, I just think a lot of people forget, and maybe they don't even care. That's probably part of it too. They probably don't even care, but I care a lot. And that's like the mental status of your team, the emotional status, the spiritual status of your team. And like, where are they? Are they running on fumes? Are they running on empty? Is their tank full? Like those are things that you have direct impact on as a business owner. And I think I wish I knew that earlier on. I don't know if there's like drastic things I would have changed that I did, but I just think having that mindset would have been different. Another thing that I'd wish that I'd known when I first started the company is that there are going to be people that are going to watch you win and never clap. That's a big thing. There are going to be people that are going to watch every single thing that you do. They're going to watch every single post. They're going to go to every single speaking event. They are going to know everything about you, and they are never going to support you, and they are never going to clap. They're just curious. And those are the people that you got to watch out for. Don't be worried about the enemies that you know. Don't be worried about the people that you know don't like you. It's the ones that you think are your friends. Those are the ones you got to be worried about, right? And I think I wish I was I was young, right? I was 26 years old, but I was very naive to that in the beginning. And that really caused me a lot of heartache, was that I thought that, these people betrayed me. I had a lot of people that betrayed me in the beginning. And it could be your family, it could be your significant other, it could be your family, it could be your best friend, and there's a lot of people want you to stay at a certain place because they can't pass that place, right? They have a ceiling for themselves, so they want you to stay in that same room. They don't want you to surpass that ceiling because they can't surpass that ceiling. And so be really cautious. And this is something I, would say to myself, is just be very cautious with who you tell things to. And you can't be in business with or friends with or aligned with anybody that's jealous of you. You can't do that because that person never wants to see you win, but they are watching everything. So that would be something that I would think. I don't know that I would have wished that I knew exactly where it was going to go, but that would have been so cool. Like, I remember when I first started, I was just like, I had no plan. I had no idea. Like, and I drive my CEO coach and a lot of like these strategy people nuts. They're like, what's your 5-year plan? I was like, I don't know, wherever God wants me to go. Like, that's so horrible for strategists, right? Because like it creates nothing tangible. But I just think the one thing that I like wish that I'd known when I first started KRAE was that you're just going to freaking kill it, dude. You're going to kill it. Like, you're just going to kill it. Do it because it's this desire on your heart, but you're going to kill it. And you're going to kill it in more ways than you're even going to realize that you're going to kill it. And so, yeah, for anybody listening who's thought about starting a business or wanting to start a business, that desire is on your heart because you're supposed to. And I think you just need to go do it, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to end up back in a job exactly where you are now. Whoop-de-doo. We're going to unpack this a lot in the future. We're going to do a lot of solo pods here throughout the holidays, Christmas time, New Year's, into the new year. I'm going to be doing a lot more solo pod episodes. So either on our YouTube channel or on Instagram or any of the places that you guys listen to this podcast, you can DM me, feel free. I'm starting to accumulate questions that people want to ask me, ideas that they have, things that they want to know, things that they want to pick my brain about, right? This is the best way to do it. It costs money to have a one-on-one meeting with me, but if you ask a question through the Instagram page or through YouTube or our website, we're not going to charge you. We're just going to talk about it on the podcast. So a lot of people gave us some really, really great questions and good prompts for the next coming up episodes. So if you guys are in this kind of business ownership land, or you're not really sure about, mentorship, leadership, or kind of how we became what we did, tune in, stick around, because we got a lot of exciting things coming up. So thanks so much for listening to today's episode, and I look forward to our next one. Do, 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 do.